On the evening of June 18, 1815, a battle to decide Europe's fate took place near Waterloo village. The Battle of Waterloo, also known as La Belle Alliance, ended 23 years of recurrent warfare between France and other European powers, but changed so much for Napoleon. Join us as we tell the story of one of the most historic battles ever fought in the history of mankind. The re-emergence of Napoleon. In May 1814, Napoleon was exiled to Elba, but he returned to France on March 1, 1815. He had an entourage of 1,000 men when he landed near Cannes. As Napoleon made his way to Paris, the people of rural areas supported him. Consequently, Louis XVIII had to abandon his country before Napoleon finally arrived in the nation's capital on March 20. The four nations of Great Britain, Prussia, Austria, and Russia formalized an agreement wherein they agreed to deploy 150,000 men in the field until Napoleon was overthrown. This resulted in the mobilization of a total of 794,000 troops who were assigned to converge on Paris from different routes. As it would take some time for the Russians to reach the Rhine, it was decided that the invasion would occur in early July. This gave Napoleon a chance to read his defenses. He assembled an army of 160,000 men. But Louis XVIII's abolishment of conscription meant that these troops were not trained and had to be used defensively. Therefore, Napoleon was forced to relegate many of his troops to guard the borders. To bridge the gap in defense, Napoleon immediately started to raise an army of 80,000 men in 8 weeks. The conscription class of 1815 was also ordered to submit for duty, and Napoleon hoped that the total number of troops would exceed 500,000 before the autumn season. Knowing that the Allies would be slowly approaching France, Napoleon concluded that he wanted to attack Wellington and Blücher, located in the southern Netherlands, before the Austrians and Russians arrived. Thus, by April 27, Napoleon had decided to attack Wellington and Blücher in anticipation of defeating them before their allies could lend them support. The Allied forces under the Duke of Wellington and Prince Blücher had assembled in Belgium by early June. Although their combined strength amounted to more than 213,000 men, the quality of their troops was questionable. Blücher's army of 120,000 mostly included inexperienced conscripts, while Wellington described his own troops of 93,000 as infamous. Consequently, the odds were not in their favor when the two armies faced off against Napoleon's forces. Only 29,000 of William's soldiers were reliable Netherlanders who had served less than a year under Napoleon before joining William. There were 16,000 Hanoverians, 6,800 Brunswickers, and 6,300 men from George III's German Legion in the polyglot army. Lastly, only the last contingent of 7,700 veterans of the Peninsular War could be trusted in a crisis. Most Allied troops were no match for the highly enthusiastic and largely veteran French force. Furthermore, Wellington and Blücher had decided to come to each other's aid if either was attacked, but little serious thought had been given to such a possibility before June 15. Therefore, the combined Allied forces appeared ill-equipped to face Napoleon and his formidable troops. The initial engagement of battle. The combat location on June 18 featured two low ridges, shut off by a valley extending up to 1.1 kilometers in breadth. Wellington organized a defense line along an unpaved road from Braine-l'Alleud to Mont Saint-Jean along the crest of the northern ridge. This road was lined with thick hedges, providing excellent coverage, and most of Wellington's forces were placed on the reverse slope to protect them from French artillery fire. Two outposts, Hougoumont Chateau and its grounds at 450 meters away from the main line, and La Haye-Saint-Farman-Saint-Bit at 1 kilometer east of the primary position, also held tactical significance. Other minor positions were established at La Haye and Papelotte Farms, further to the east. Wellington was bolstered by the presence of 67,661 men and 156 cannons to oppose Napoleon's 71,947, which had 246 guns at their disposal. It was 11:35 a.m. when the opening salvo of artillery fire came from one of Riel's divisions, and thus hostilities began. Before launching his main attack, Napoleon ordered a diversionary assault on Hougoumont. The soggy ground slowed the action, but the Battle of Waterloo had begun. For 90 minutes, the fight for Hougoumont was in full swing, with increasing numbers of French troops being committed without drawing defenders away from Wellington's center. Furthermore, in the event of a breakthrough at Hougoumont, Napoleon still hoped to defeat Wellington before the Prussians could arrive. To this end, Two cavalry divisions were deployed between La Belle Alliance and the Allied lines to form a screen against Belot's approach. A corps under Georges Mouton, Count de Lobau, was placed behind them. At 1:30 p.m., these dispositions were finished, and the battery at La Belle Alliance opened fire, followed shortly by an infantry advance of 18,000 men under Ney and Drought. No cavalry accompanied the attack, but British infantry met the French with maximum firepower. Many of the attackers marched in a peculiar formation, with 200 men across and 24 to 27 files deep. This left them unable to deliver effective return fire and vulnerable to artillery. La Haye-Saint was attacked without success, while the French took over Papelotte. Uxbridge then unleashed his cavalry against the disordered columns, even though they were outnumbered. To this day, the Battle of Waterloo is a testament to Wellington's tactical genius and bravery. The French retreated from Papelotte orderly, but could not repel the attacking British horsemen. Despite Ponsonby's death and the loss of 2,500 English cavalrymen, which was one-third of those present, Wellington successfully managed the first crisis. Meanwhile, Droit's force had been pushed back from the ridges at the British lines with serious losses and 3,000 prisoners taken. Meanwhile, at about 4:30 p.m., 11 hours after having commenced their march through difficult terrain, Belot's top divisions opened fire from Paris Wood on the French cavalry screen. Lobau determined he must hold his ground despite being increasingly outnumbered and engage the Prussians before Belot could deploy his remaining forces. Blücher, who had accompanied Belot's corps, switched the Prussian attack to Plancenoit, forcing Lobau to retreat and detach a brigade to defend the village. Duhesme's division of the Young Guard was sent to recover Plancenoit. As a result, Lobau had no choice but to retreat. By 5:30 p.m., Blücher had driven Bonaparte from the field, and Wellington's victory at Waterloo was complete. The Prussians captured 6,000 French prisoners, 30 guns, and 300 ammunition wagons. Wellington had emerged victorious, but at a great cost. He lost 23,000 men out of 68,000 and suffered 15,000 wounded. Napoleon's losses were far worse. He suffered a total of 25,000 casualties out of 73,000, the largest percentage of men lost in battle during his career. The Battle of Waterloo was a defining moment in European history and ended Napoleon's dreams of hegemony. The aftermath. The Battle of Waterloo cost Wellington around 17,000 casualties and Blücher around 7,000. Napoleon's loss was estimated to be between 24,000 to 26,000 killed or wounded, with an additional 15,000 deserting after the battle. In the aftermath of Waterloo, Napoleon was forced to retreat to Paris, where he arrived on June 21. He wrote to his brother Joseph with hopes of raising an army and fighting back the Anglo-Prussian forces, while General Grouchy's army reinforced him in Paris. However, these plans were ultimately unsuccessful. On June 21, the Chamber of Deputies voted to become permanent after persuasion from Lafayette. This decision was made to prevent Napoleon from overthrowing the Chamber of Deputies and triggering a possible civil war. In the end, Napoleon was forced to accept exile on July 15, 1815, and abdicated his throne in favor of his young son, Napoleon II. The 100 Days were over, and the French monarchy was restored with Louis XVIII taking the throne. The Battle of Waterloo also marked important developments in military tactics and technology. Though they had only confronted chasseurs from the Middle Guard, Maitland's First Foot Guards were mistakenly credited with a victory over the Grenadiers. This feat was so impressive that they were awarded the title of Grenadier Guards and adopted bearskins in the style of the Grenadiers. The Household Cavalry adopted the cuirass in 1821 to recognize their success against the French armored cavalry. Waterloo also saw the emergence of an unusual yet lucrative industry. Survivors, locals, and even scavengers from Britain extracted teeth from tens of thousands of dead soldiers and used them to make denture replacements. These so-called Waterloo teeth became highly sought after due to their quality. The Battle of Waterloo was ultimately decisive in the Napoleonic Wars that saw French Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte defeated by a coalition of British, Dutch, and Belgian forces led by the Duke of Wellington. It marked a key moment in European history, as Napoleon's defeat allowed relative peace and stability to be established in the region. The Battle of Waterloo was a significant victory for those opposed to Napoleon, and it remains an important milestone in European history. I hope this video has helped further your understanding of the Battle of Waterloo. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel for more educational content, and share it with your friends. We would also love to hear any feedback or suggestions you may have on this topic or other videos we can provide in the future. Thank you for watching. Until next time.